So today we're talking about evidence-based trauma-informed approaches to meditation and self-care, the path of integration. And I would just want to share a quote with you, which comes from Daniel Siegel, who's a medical doctor. He's the author of an amazing book, which I highly recommend. It's called Mindsight: The New Science of Personal Transformation. And also, you may be more familiar with this other title, The Whole Brain Child, which is also an equally amazing book, because in it, Dan Siegel gets into how the brain works and how we can help to build resilience in ourselves and our children. And if any parents out there, Whole Brain Child, highly recommended. But like, it's one thing to understand how the brain works and how you can help improve sort of your interactions with children to help facilitate cognitive development, healthy cognitive development. But also Mindsight is that kind of book where you can look at it and look at your own kind of mind and help to improve things within yourself that can actually benefit your children or your partner or whoever it is that you're around on a regular basis. So highly recommend those two. The quote is, "The human mind is a relational and embodied process that regulates the flow of energy and information." And this is a few years ago that he coined that definition. But prior to that, there was no universal definition or no functional definition for the human mind. Anyway, he's done tons and tons and tons of work and research with many individuals across different sectors related to health and so on. And so, the information that's available that he is bringing up is just phenomenal. So highly recommended. So just moving on to the next slide here. The Man with Two Brains. Okay, now I don't know if you guys have seen this movie. So this is a 1983 film starring Steve Martin as a widowed brain surgeon, Michael, who's renowned for inventing cranial screw-top brain surgery. Basically, Michael ends up saving the life of a young woman, Dolores, who's a gold-digging femme fatale, who's accidentally run over by Michael when fleeing the scene of her husband's fatal coronary caused by her malicious mind games and scheming. So as she recovers, Michael falls in love with her and they decide to get married. But Dolores, has other plans, and she ends up tormenting Michael by pretending to be too ill to consummate the marriage, citing a continuing headache. And on the honeymoon and business trip to a medical conference in Vienna, which is a city living in fear of the serial elevator killer, Michael meets mad scientist Dr. Alfred Necessiter, who has created a technique enabling him to store living brains in liquid-filled jars using elevator killer's victims. So Michael falls in love with Anne, who's actually one of the brains in one of the jars, and through a hilarious chain of events, including the fateful actions of the local serial killer, he succeeds in transplanting Anne's brain into his recently deceased wife, and they live happily ever after. So that's The Man with Two Brains. But actually, where Steve Martin in that movie had two brains, the rest of us actually have three brains. And the three brains are the body brain, which is also referred to as the reptilian brain. It's responsible for our autonomic functions like breathing and heart rate. And this part of our brain evolved 250 million years ago, so a long time prior to mammals. And then we have the limbic brain, which is also called the middle brain or emotional brain or mammalian brain. It's the feeling brain. It evolved about 150 million years ago. And then finally, the third brain that we have is the neocortex or thinking brain, and it's responsible for higher cognitive functions. It evolved about 2 to 3 million years ago. So in that kind of emotional brain, or the emotional brain is also called, as we said, the limbic system. That's our emotional brain. It's a key part of our everyday experience, and especially as it relates to emotions and family and social life. The right side of our limbic system is active from the beginning of our lives. It specializes in spatial awareness and relationships. It's non-symbol based. And during our early development as children, we store implicit memories, which are deep-rooted cognitive understandings of the world that function below our everyday awareness. So this is called by psychologists the subconscious. So the right hippocampus is sort of storing these implicit memories and giving us a sense of the world. as we learn and develop, we start to use the left side of our limbic system more, and we start to increase our capacity for symbolic communication, a sense of time, awareness, and the awareness of how we are separate from others. So that's kind of when we think of the left brain. That's where it starts to work. We've got the parietal lobe, we've got the temporal lobe, all those things sort of in that left hemisphere, which give us a sense of who we are and how things are separate. Because even like a year ago, I asked my 4.5-year-old daughter, like, what time is it? And like, she's like, gives extremely vague answers because for her, time is extremely fluid. It has nothing to do with, the symbols that we use to describe it, right? So it's something that's part of our development as children, and shifting sort of more into the left hemisphere is part of our brain development, which is great. So moving on from the limbic system, we can talk about the stress response. So the limbic system plays a key role in the stress response. And some of you may know this already. Our right hippocampus, which is also called the parent brain, perceives danger and signals to the right amygdala, which is like the body's alarm system. The right amygdala then sends a message to the hypothalamus and pituitary glands. So those are inside the limbic system. And these glands react to the right amygdala's alarm and release a hormone that basically signals to the adrenals to release adrenaline and cortisol. And that's basically that HPA axis, if you've ever heard of it. It's the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. It's basically what our stress system is. The stress hormones, the epinephrine and slash adrenaline and cortisol, flood the body, and they result in increased blood pressure, heart rate, breath rate, conversion of glycogen to glucose, the slowing down of digestion, and tunnel vision. And this stress response is very functional and effective for helping us to deal with stressful life-death situations. So if we're teetering on the edge of a cliff, or we are being chased by large predators, or we are in the process of getting swept away by ocean waves, the stress response is really functional. And we need it because, it might be we're standing on the edge of the cliff and we're like, I wonder what happens if I lean forward, right? Whoops, and there you go, right? So then we're toast. So we don't want that. So we need that whole part of our sympathetic nervous system to act into high gear and keep us safe. But what we do not want is chronic stress. So whereas the body's stress response is functional in particular circumstances and helps us to react to danger, chronic stress can be dysfunctional and can lead to a host of negative effects. So we see this in things like symptoms of chronic stress include irritability, fatigue, headaches, difficulty concentrating, digestive issues, insomnia, immunosuppression, and other effects as well. Chronic stress increases the activity level of the neural connections in the amygdala, particularly the right amygdala, which is the brain's fear center. And as we get increased levels of cortisol from chronic stress, the electrical signals in our hippocampus, that's the part of our brain associated with learning, memory, and stress control, start to deteriorate. And since the hippocampus also normally inhibits the activity of the HPA axis, right? That's the one that's used in the stress response. When the hippocampus weakens, so does our ability to control our stress, which means that it just starts to snowball, right? It's this big thing rolling down the hill, and we don't have much power to stop it. So cortisol can literally cause your brain to shrink in size. Too much of it results in the loss of synaptic connections between your neurons and the shrinking of your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that regulates behaviors like concentration, decision-making, judgment, and social interaction. And also chronic stress can lead to fewer brain cells being made in the hippocampus. This means that chronic stress might make it harder for you to learn, to remember things, and also sets the stage for more serious mental problems such as depression and eventually Alzheimer's disease. So, right? So we do not want chronic stress. We want to mitigate chronic stress if at all possible. So just moving on to the next slide there. So rescue breath. So fortunately, we can leverage the body's central nervous system, in particular our parasympathetic nervous system, to help nullify the effects of stress. And one of the ways we can do this is through the rescue breath, which is interestingly also practiced in paramilitary circles and is referred to as sniper breathing. And so the rescue breath involves an extended exhalation, which puts pressure on our dorsal vagal complex, which is a nerve that runs along the anterior part of our spine. This pressure on our dorsal vagal complex basically sends a signal to our medulla oblongata, which is the part of our reptilian brain which is responsible for autonomic functions, and it tells it basically to slow down the heart rate. So the effect of doing rescue breath is a very quick calming of the mind and body and inducing the body's relaxation response. So let's try it. And I'm just going to see here if people can actually see me in the video, and I think that's good. Hopefully, I'll come up so you can see me fine. But I'm just going to demonstrate what rescue breath is, and maybe if you could just follow along. Rescue breath involves taking just a quick in breath through the nose and a very elongated out breath through the nose. So I use my hands to sort of stimulate that very slow exhalation. And so if you take an in breath and exhale through your nose, and then another in breath and exhale. And then another in breath and exhale. So you may feel already that you may feel a sense of calmness, and I certainly do just from doing those 3 breaths. You might also start to feel the signs of a galvanic skin response, which is you can feel kind of tingling like in your hands or throughout your body on your skin. That's signs that you're shifting into your parasympathetic nervous system, which is inducing this relaxation response. So that's what rescue breath can do. And it's so easy. All you need to do is a quick inhale and then a very long, slow exhale. And you can really do this anywhere in situations where you're being exposed to, you're experiencing some kind of stress or discomfort. Rescue breath is very effective. And, it being also called sniper breathing in paramilitary circles, rather. I mean, obviously, those can be very volatile, dangerous situations in which those professionals need something to keep them very calm. And hence you see its application. So I'm just going to make full screen again with the presentation and move on to the next slide. So whereas the rescue breath it's a great part of our anti-stress toolkit. It can be basically used in a pinch, right? Where you're starting to feel that stress response coming up and you're like, uh-oh, okay, I just want to calm down. So how can I do that? Rescue breathing. So other related prevention strategies can have a profound ameliorating effects on our quality of life and help us to remedy chronic stress. So we want to focus on prevention because, as we know, prevention is a large component of the cure, right? We don't want to just let things get to a really stressful situation and then trying to mitigate it right there. We want to build our resilience so that we can handle stress and then learn ways to mitigate it. So there are many different ways that we can use, many different tools in our anti-stress toolkit that we can use to help remedy stress. And regular exercise is a really great one. It's been found to be very effective in helping to combat stress. So exercise reduces levels of adrenaline and cortisol in the body, and it also stimulates the production of endorphins, the body's natural painkillers and mood elevators. And anyone who does regular exercises is like, they know that when they're doing it consistently, they feel in general much, much better than when they fall off the wagon and don't exercise. Also regular positive social relations have been shown to help mitigate stress. These interactions involve the ventral vagal complex, which is the part of the parasympathetic nervous system that runs along the front of the body from the gut to the face, and it's involved in social bonding. So socialization in a positive way increases hormones that decrease anxiety levels and help us to cope with stress. So yeah, social relations, very important. Also journaling, surprisingly, at least to me, probably not to a lot of you who do it, So journaling has demonstrated positive impacts on stress and encourages lateral integration of the left and right hemispheres of the brain, and helps to integrate rather implicit memories, increase self-awareness, and improve mental outlook. So, I mean, I've done a little bit of it in the past, but I know there are people that absolutely swear by it, and this is the reason. And so science is showing demonstrated proof that journaling is a very effective way of dealing with stress. And then meditation is something also that helps to deal with stress. So it basically decreases the beta brain waves, which are indicative of information processing in the brain. It calms the frontal cortex, which is responsible for reasoning, planning, emotions, and self-conscious awareness. It slows down the parietal lobe, which that's the part of our brain that sort of orientates you in time and space, right? So if you're thinking like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, that's the parietal lobe, right? It wants to keep you on track, right? We've got 5 minutes till this meeting or that. And so we need to slow that down if we want to reduce stress. And meditation also soothes the thalamus, which is the gatekeeper of the senses, and it makes the reticular formation, which is a part of the brain, which is sort of the sentry, which lets us know when the whole system needs to go on high alert. It basically tells our reticular formation to stand down, just not to be sounding the alarm bell along with the right amygdala. So we know that meditation is really important for that, and very effective. And meditation also helps us to have better focus, less anxiety, more creativity, more compassion, better memory, and less stressed, and best of all, more gray matter. And so this picture is, we have the Talosians. They were a highly advanced civilization that first appeared in the 11th and 12th episodes of the original Star Trek series from 1965. And obviously, meditation doesn't cause these slightly disturbing modifications to cranial anatomy, but we do see tangible effects of meditation on the brain. So leveraging the brain's capacity for neuroplasticity, meditation changes the architecture and functioning of the brain. It increases the thickness of the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex. And meditation has been shown to diminish age-related effects on gray matter and reduce the decline of our cognitive functioning. So yeah, I mean, that for me, not that and that alone, but definitely that is something, as we do get older, we are naturally, having our brains are naturally declining, and we want to do everything we can to help prevent that. So meditation is a really effective way. Obviously, there are other ways as well. My mom swears by crosswords and bridge. She's a bridge aficionado, and all those things are great. But meditation, we know that it affects the neuroplasticity of the brain, and helps to slow those decline down. So moving on to the next slide. Okay, I can't meditate. So there we have the crying child. People often tell me I can't meditate. And what they're really telling me is that either they don't know how to meditate or what they did before didn't work. And I agree with them that meditation is almost impossible for them to do. And the reason for that is because they're simply breathing too fast. So we have seen that if we look at the resting breath rate historically, we have seen that in 1929, the average resting breath rate, and this is a particular study in the United States, was 4.9 breaths per minute. This increased to 5.3 breaths per minute in 1939, to 6.9 breaths per minute in 1950, to 7.8 breaths per minute in 1980, and 12 to 15 breaths per minute today is the average. So we currently breathe at triple the rate that people did in 1929. So there are a number of plausible explanations for this, which may include increased rates of stress, sedentary lifestyle, increased consumption of carbohydrates and stimulants, technological distractions, you name it. We don't really know, but what we do know is that we're breathing 3 times the rate that they were in 1929. So not particularly great. But breathing, is so important that in yoga and meditation, that there's a whole branch of practices in yoga devoted to it called pranayama, which literally translates as life force control. So certainly the breath is a crucial part of our existence, for without the breath, our bodies would shut down and our brains would die, and we can harness the power of breath and meditation to transform our bodies and minds. And so the primary thing that we teach in our morning meditation sessions is something called heart rate variability resonance breathing. And it's something that has developed over time, and the understanding of heart rate variability has been around since I think it's the 1860s or 1870s. And but now there are people who are using breathing techniques that helps to leverage this heart rate variability. It brings basically the breath rate and heart rate into resonance, and it calms the whole system down. So heart rate variability resonance breathing is distilled from Kriya Yoga, which is an advanced meditation practice. And heart rate variability resonance breathing leverages the power of breath to shift from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic. And this shift helps to quiet the chatty, task-oriented left hemisphere of the brain and further awaken the right side of the brain, particularly the right hippocampus. Now, the right hippocampus is what we could consider as the master puzzle piece assembler, and it's responsible for connecting memory fragments in the brain into an integrated whole with the rest of the brain. And that's what basically allows us to remember things from the past. The process of lateral integration, which is the integration of the left and right hemispheres, is crucial for recovery from stress and trauma. And heart rate variability resonance breathing, therefore, can play an important role in recovery and resilience. And certainly, in the case of myself, I can speak from personal experience for sure. But what you're trying to do in meditation is you're trying to get what we consider as sort of out of the mind or out of the sort of chattery part of our mind and out of the sort of immediate senses into sort of an internalized state. And when we do that and we get into an expansive awareness state by being basically shifting our awareness into our right hippocampus and right brain, we experience this expansion, this peace, this stillness, and our sense of time diminishes, our sense of symbols diminish. All those things diminished, and we are just in this kind of very conscious awareness, which is great. It really is very positive, and it makes the body feel great too. It allows us to begin that process of integration with sort of implicit memories that may be sort of, for lack of a better term, integrated with the rest of the brain. So it helps to allow this process to unfold. So how do we do heart rate variability resonance breathing? It is really, really simple. And it just involves four things that we need to do. One of them, we need to lower the breath to 7 breaths per minute or less, which is basically a 4-second inhale and a 5-second exhale. That's a minimum threshold to get into heart rate variability. We need to take out the pauses between the breaths. We need to make our out breath slightly longer than our in breath, and we need to sit very still. If we do those four things, we will get into heart rate variability. We will shift into our parasympathetic nervous system, and we will shift from our left brain to our right brain, and we will experience true meditation. And I tell you, you can do this in 5 minutes or less. You don't need to follow any particular spiritual practice or yoga practice. You can just do this very simple breathing. So let's try it. So I'm just going to cue us in a very quick meditation. And this is something that we do in our morning meditation sessions. And what we basically want to do is be sitting in a very comfortable position with our spine erect. Relax our shoulders, our face, our arms, down through our torso, down through our legs, knees to our feet and toes. And then we want to just quickly empty our lungs and then take an inhale. And exhale. And 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 inhale. And exhale. So let's just relax. So that was just a little sample, just a little bite, if you will, of heart rate variability resonance breathing. Now, we only did it for possibly a minute and a half, but some of you may have already started to feel a little calmer. You may have felt that galvanic skin response in your body, basically letting you know that you're shifting into your parasympathetic nervous system. If you do that for 5 minutes, you will go into meditation, and you may go into really deep meditation, and that's a really positive thing. So, I highly recommend if you are available for those morning sessions, why don't you come out and try it? It's a great thing to do to help support your own resilience. And it's something that you can add to your already existing, practices and approaches for self-care. So I don't know that we'll have time for questions, but I just want to let you know. So if you have if you want further information, you can check our website. This is modernkriya.com. So we have lots of free stuff on that website, a guided meditation on heart rate variability resonance breathing. So there's lots there. I also too, if you have any particular questions for me, you can reach out to me. Just find me, Steve Lauer, in the Branches Gal. And yeah, so thank you again for everyone for attending this today. It's great to celebrate Mental Health Week with people and to see the amazing stuff that's going on.